You're gonna see some serious shit.
It is the future. The year 2015. Okay, it's not as cool as we were promised, but it's not that different really. Instead of Jaws 19, we get Terminator Jenny CCs. It's the same thing really. We need to make a future for ourselves. A future where film lovers make film podcasts about why they love film. Where we stay positive no matter what the next batshit crazy Fantastic Four reboot rumor is. Come on guys, Star Wars and Mad Max are coming back. Brad Bird's got another movie out, Pixar have too. Stick with us folks and you'll always see the bright side of movies. Don't mind the title, it's just ironic. Welcome to Movie Moan 2015! Hello and a very, very warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to a podcast that hopefully for you is going to have a little bit of class, a little bit of quality, a lot of warmth, a lot of heart, and most importantly, a lot of love for cinema, a lot of love for why we're all here in the first place. And that's really the mission goal of Movie Moan 2015, the podcast to which you are now listening to. If you want a podcast which is not too snobbish to talk about all the deluge of comic book movie news, but keeps it in its own self-contained section so that we can also devote other areas of the show to other things that are going on in the world of film, then this is the podcast for you. If you'd like a show which has just a warm and hopefully witty, informal atmosphere where we actually just talk about films that we've seen, talk about them in the grand tradition of Siskel and Ebert, our ever loved and adored inspiration, then this is the show for you. And if you want a show where we always at the end of it swing back to the love of film, we talk about older films, we talk about the classics that got us and inspired us to do what we're doing right now, speaking to you, then this is the show for you. Let's just move on right now without further ado and let's get into Classic Movie Moan. folks, you've heard quite enough of me. What I'd like to do is introduce my dear, dear friend who is going to make this section work. I just realised that's a lot of pressure for him, actually. But trust me, folks, I could not do this. If I'm going to be Siskel, as I always like to be, my avatar on Skype is the mustachioed Gene Siskel, in fact. Well, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Roger Ebert, the guy who is just... I can't do this without. I can't do any of it without. I have lulls, folks. I have times where I get bored of it all. But this guy, he doesn't get bored of it. He's always up. He's always got something to talk about. Whenever we get together, he always energizes me through his sheer love and passion of film. Would you please welcome Mr. Jamie Williams?
Hello, sir. That's a great intro. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sweet. In fact, I still go on SiskelandEbert.org every day to see, like, have they loaded a new old video up yet? Best thing to find. I wish someone would find more clips of them on talk shows and shit. They did that wonderful documentary on Mr. Ebert called Life Itself, which is probably going to win the best documentary Oscar. Is that a lock? Is that just a foregone conclusion at this point? It's going to win?
I didn't think of that, but I think you're right.
I'm asking out loud. I don't know. I don't know what other documentaries came out this year because most people don't. But yeah, there's a bit where they talk about how they were on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson like so many times. I was like, why didn't you release those clips? I want to watch them.
We'll find them. We'll find them eventually.
We'll find them one day. They're there. They just didn't want to put them out. I don't know why.
A couple of years ago, it was hard enough for me to imagine that we'd see, older clips from the early 80s, like, I want to see the first time these guys talked about E.T. We found it. I want to see the first time that these guys talk about The Empire Strikes Back. Well, they found it. SiskelandEbert.org. If we had a sponsor, folks, it would be them.
I think it would be them, clearly. And also, if you really want to say the best shows to watch the worst of your shows. Those are really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean that in an ironic sense. It's just really funny because you think about it. They say, like, these movies took 2 hours out of our life that we'll never get back, so we want to get one last, sting at them. And you think about that, you go, that's true. I mean, in 2 hours, you could be doing other things when you're seeing the worst movie ever made. When you're watching I Spit on Your Grave or Frozen Assets or shit like that they just know are just garbage. I've never seen Frozen Assets, by the way, but I saw the review, and I thought, okay, I don't need to see it. Leonard Part 6, which is like one of the most infamous failures on film, and I don't know, have y'all watched Leonard Part 6? I've never seen it.
I'd rather eat my own scrotum, thank you.
I just love the rant that Roger Ebert gave on it.
I couldn't do it by myself. You need somebody to... Well, I could if I was having a rant, and those will happen, folks, occasionally, I'm sure. But if you're just going to talk about, good films, you need someone to bounce off of. And speaking of which, we do have, I wouldn't say a third wheel, but a third bouncer offer of tonight for our section here, Classic Movie Mode. I'd like to introduce someone who is very, very mysterious, very, very powerful within the industry. It's actually really, really great because even though we are just pundits, when we get to talk about these movies that are coming up, we don't talk about them, hopefully you will agree, in a sort of arrogant way where we feel like we know what the conclusion's going to be and what the quality's going to be of a film before we've seen it. Sometimes, though, we do know. It's only because we've been told by this guy right here who's in the know. And man, he has told me some things about the Thing in Fantastic Four that literally can't be repeated, but I tell you folks...
You might as well repeat it. Just repeat it.
Can I tell them, Matt?
Doesn't bother me.
Okay, well, first of all, before I do, Mr. Matt Thompson. Hello, Matt.
Hi, I had to ask, by the way, Phil, if you're Gene Siskel and Jamie, you're Roger Ebert, does that make me Ben Lyons?
I was going to say you were Richard Roper.
I'll take Roper over Lyons. I'm good with it.
Or you could be A.L. Scott.
As long as I'm not Ben Lyons, all right? Just young connection, okay, as long as I'm not Ben Lyons.
So, folks, you might be wondering about the appearance of the Thing in Josh Trank's Fantastic Four, which is coming up. Of course, I think it has been confirmed by Trank himself that the only shot we've seen so far, which is the Thing head on a pole in front of a green screen, that will be the Thing. But as Matt was telling us, that will only be his appearance at the climax of the movie. Before then, for a good, I guess, 90 minutes or so after they've had their accident, what form will the Thing take, Matt?
Well, in the sense of truly high-tech craftsmanship, the Thing will be a black rock.
Now, are we talking like a pebble, like a paperweight here? Or are we talking like a big, humongous boulder 2001 monolith thing?
No, a decent-sized, rock. A nice rock, not a rock.
Literally, and what happened is like Jamie Bell is going to just dub over the rock. There won't be any animation; it'll just like move by itself.
You know what? Look, the first two Fantastic Four movies did not do as expected. All right, so they had to cut costs somewhere. There are rocks everywhere. All right, it's just it'll work. All right.
Can it move? Can the rock move?
No, what they do is they say action, and someone just throws a rock on, across the screen.
My thing would be if Ben Grimm actually didn't come back and they were just imagining the rock was their friend. That would be the best.
It's going to be interesting. I'll say that. That's the best way to phrase it, in the positive way we'd like to. It's going to be interesting. But anyway, let's talk about the movies that are real, that are tangible, that are here, and we could talk about. I'd like very much, certainly for the benefit of our UK listeners, I don't know if it's had wide release in the States yet, but I'd like Mr. Matt Thompson to start the ball rolling with the reviews tonight by talking about Clint Eastwood's American Sniper.
I have to give Warner Brothers credit, by the way. The marketing for this film has been incredible. The trailers, the TV spots, which flood television in the States, have been really amazing, to the point that I saw the film several weeks ago, didn't like it very much, and yet I still look at those TV spots and think, wow, that looks like a good movie. It's the trouble with it is, it's an interesting story. Bradley Cooper is very good in it, kind of putting on his little southern drawl and bulked out to all hell, like Jesus, dude pulled a Chris Pratt, except he was in shape to begin with. It's just very flat. You go to Iraq and then it cuts back to the home life, and you go to Iraq and it cuts back to the home life, just back and forth for 2 hours, and it never feels like it's building to anything. It doesn't feel like there's any real through line. It's just scene after scene after scene. Eastwood never really builds much in the way of suspense. The dramatic scenes at the home life are very stale. And it has what is easily the worst rubber baby you'll ever see on screen. I felt so bad watching it. I genuinely can't understand. There's a baby that looks like something your little sister would have had when she was 6 years old, and they try to play it off as a newborn infant. Again, I feel bad kicking off the positivity segment, the happy new movie mode, by saying, I felt American Sniper was just very middle of the road, very uninspired. It felt like everyone was just sort of mailing it in.
On the plus side, you've just done the honest trailer for it. Iraq, home life. Iraq, home life. Iraq. Well, you saved me a couple of bucks.
And when they do that, they can pay me. Phil, you have my contact information.
Yes.
So if they want to send me a check, fantastic.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, I mean, certainly it was coming out in the UK in a couple of weeks. Has it opened in the States yet?
It's opened very limited in the States. Yeah. I believe it comes out the 16th.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge in the States.
I think, again, the marketing has been incredible. I was telling Jamie, I think it's going to break the January box office opening record.
Wow.
Last year, Lone Survivor was a big hit, in part because there was nothing else out, and also because, hey, it looked interesting. I haven't seen Lone Survivor, but yeah, exactly. America! But, I think it's going to be a big hit, actually. Big hit. This might be, I imagine this is going to be Eastwood's first $100 million hit since Gran Torino.
Oh yeah, this is clearly going to. If this doesn't break 100, I will be flabbergasted.
Domestically,
again, I expect it. The January record is something like $40 million. I think this will beat it. So if it opens above that, it's clearly breaking 100. Again, it's disappointing because the marketing has been so good. And clearly Cooper's giving it his all. I mean, Cooper is acting his ass off in it, but the whole film is just feels very, very.
That's a dude who I gotta say I have a lot of respect for, because he's the one who came out of the Hangover success, and everyone talked about like, boy, he's the breakout star, and I think the first Hangover is very funny. It's a really good movie, but he's the one of the three lead guys. He's the one who stands out the least, and I never understood how people came to that conclusion that he's the breakout. And of course, it came down to he's the prettiest. So
I liked him more than Helms in The Hangover.
I thought at least Helms was more memorable. And I'm not knocking Cooper because he's the straight man in the group, and he was good at that.
Here's the thing about Cooper. Remember when Cooper was just the dick from Wedding Crashers?
That's right. That's the thing. The guy's got versatility. Like, people remember that. But my point being is, like, the guy.
He was in Wet Hot American Summer as the prissy theater director, I seem to remember.
Right. He was taken on one end, and Michael Ian Black was giving it.
Oh, that's right, yes. That's
Which
right.
to this day, I hope that when he dies, that will be the clip they use in his in memoriam.
That's great, Jamie.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's very positive, Jamie.
That's a great performance.
That's a guy I have a lot of respect for, don't forget. Those were Jamie's words. Just 2 minutes previous.
Not even. I just totally turned on the guy. No, what I mean is, though, that the guy absolutely took this, success and ran with it, and he's done nothing but smart choices. I mean, I think that was like that one movie he did with, what was that movie with, some weird movie with Tom Arnold came out recently that got dumped. And you know what movie I'm talking about?
No.
Are you sure this wasn't a movie you thought of and enjoyed?
Big Bully 2.
The Revenge. Yes.
The first movie's about revenge. How could the second one be called The Revenge? That's the most retarded.
You give people more what they loved about the first one, Phil.
No one loved the first one. No one even remembers the first one.
I never saw the first one. I haven't thought about that movie since 1993.
We gotta be the first podcast to make a Big Bully sequel joke. Take that! Take that, Collider. Right, well, I guess we'll move on.
Ooh, I hope Steve's not listening.
I'm teasing.
No, I'm kidding. No,
we love you, Steve.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Cool guy. But my point being is that, like, Cooper's really done some real major strides with his career, and it's kind of, it's like fucking, it really is like DiCaprio after he broke out with Titanic. Like, the dude just made smart choices, and he's, like, not just going to do anything. Like, he's going to work with really good directors, and this guy's got he's clearly thinking long-term with his career, and I didn't really think that was going to happen after Hangover. I thought, like, he'd get a couple of big films, and it would kind of fizzle out. So, all props to him.
Of course. In case you're in the States, the way things work out in the UK in January often makes it my favourite month on the film calendar. For whatever reason, all the American films which are up for Oscar contention are usually dumped on us all in one go, in 1 month. But on top of that, the British always have a jolly good stab at making at least one class film each year. Always from working title, 9 times out of 10 a biopic on one of our country's most influential people. 10 times out of 10 it's about triumph over adversity, and 11 times out of 10 likely to be voted as preferable for Best Picture than some film about unlikable people or a more complicated subject matter. And I hope it doesn't sound like I'm being sarky. I don't mean to be. I used to think, and I still do in a lot of ways, that the British film industry is a joke, and we only seem to be capable of making one film a year, and it's this one. But if we're counting from when Oscar season is over, which is, going back to last year's pictures like, obviously, The Imitation Game, which is a really strong, tense, emotional thriller, and also Paddington, which I don't think is any kind of classic, but I certainly do think it deserves to be nominated for its technical craft, cinematography, the special effects, production design. It's as beautifully made a film as anything Hollywood had to offer in 2014. I think it deserves to be mentioned. And now we have The Theory of Everything, which will certainly be mentioned for Eddie Redmayne's performance as Stephen Hawking, and deservedly so. But I do think that this film is the weakest of the three. I've just mentioned, because for the most part, I mean, Mark Commode calls these TV movies not even movies, because there's very little to distinguish this as a film for big screen entertainment. I certainly agree with him in this case. This is a standard autopilot biopic, but you're supposed to feel bad for saying that because it has this truly brave and amazing performance from its leading actor, and it's a transformative job from Eddie Redmayne. I mean, let me see if I can break it down this way for you folks. Maybe you'll understand. I've always felt personally that no matter, even if you know someone and are very close to someone who may be disabled, how is it possible for someone without disability to truly appreciate it or emulate it? And emulating it for an acting performance has to be so much harder, because how could you not be self-conscious of what you're doing, what people are going to think, whether you think it's going to come off as ludicrous or offensive? And, you know, Stephen Hawking is the kind of guy who has, as we've just been talking about, he has parodied himself. He's made jokes about himself and does so all the time. So it's not just that he's of regular cultural significance. He has also entered pop culture. I know that sounds silly, but he has. So Redmayne's got a really tough job to pull off. He pulls it off. I don't know how he pulls it off. I think it's a very brave performance. As the motor neuron disease takes its toll, of course, Hawking's, not just his limbs, his ability to walk, his ability to do anything with his limbs, his ability to basically function, of course also his speech becomes more and more affected, to the point that he has the ability to speak full sentences, and you can feel that the sentences are perfectly formed in his head, but when they're transmitted, when they come out of the mouth, they're practically unintelligible. And I thought about that a lot, because as filmmakers, of course, you're in complete control of dialogue as much as you're in control of any other aspect of the picture. So it has to be a conscious choice and a brave choice to go through, you know, how many takes of a line reading that Eddie Redmayne does and pick one where it is specifically unclear, but you treat it as a normal piece of dialogue. You don't get anyone to repeat it. You just have the characters and the plot reacting to it as if it were clear as day. And it's a strange choice, but it's a brave choice. It's a legitimate choice. Even so, like I say, it's fairly run-of-the-mill for the most part. I'm almost tempted to say that if you've seen the trailer, you've seen the film, because the trailer does paint a story of love conquers all, and how the love of Stephen's life, played by Felicity Jones, she stood by his side through everything, even when everyone said he wouldn't survive more than 2 years into his condition. But what does redeem it a bit is what happens in the third act, when the film really reveals what it's been about the entire time. I am going to have to blow this, but basically, this isn't a film about marriage. This is a film about a divorce. This is about a breakup. There's a line.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks. I mean, but you know what I'm saying.
I don't want to hear it, Phil. I don't want to. I want to look on Wikipedia to find out what happens.
Cover your ears, then, bitch. I'm going to tell the folks at home. I mean, I say that though because obviously you can assume that everyone out there knows who Stephen Hawking is, knows that he wrote this book, and knows that he's very, very successful because of that. But you don't know necessarily what's going on in his private life. I personally have no interest in even famous people's private lives. So, frankly, I had no idea about his marital history. So it was actually a surprise to me watching the movie. There's a line in the trailer where Stephen's father says to Felicity Jones's character, "This is going to be a very heavy defeat." In the context of the trailer, you think it's simply about the disease, but by the end of the film, I felt it was referring to the marriage, because she isn't some saint-like, faultless figure who can endure anything and has eyes for nobody but her husband. You know, she's got a career too. She's got things that she wants to focus some time on. She's raising him, and she's raising a family of 2 children. She doesn't want to be Stephen's carer. She does get feelings for another man. And Stephen's a normal person. He's selfish. He has eyes for another woman who starts looking after him. And eventually, at the end, they just, in a very, normal, down-to-earth way, they just decide that they've tried their best, but and they have loved each other, but they just can't continue because they're not happy. So they break up at the end, and that part was interesting to me. And true enough, we're talking about real life here, but if that element of the story wasn't there, then the film would not be recommendable to me. And it would be a lot easier to probably just end it at, an earlier point where he becomes a doctor or whatever it might be, or, when he says, I'm going to write a book, whatever it might be, or when he discovers his theory. The part of the film, of course, is that he changes his theory on the nature of existence several times and has done. I'm going to give it a mild recommendation because it's a British picture, so I guess we have to support them. But it's definitely a film which decides to tell the definitive story of one of our greatest minds, a superlative human being in many ways, and then brings him down to a relatable human level. It's The Last Temptation of Hawking.
Is that a pun about him being in a wheelchair?
I guess. I'm going to hell anyway for the aliens.
I expected more, Bill.
Yes. Well, I'm a terrible human being. Anyway, so I'll recommend that one. Yeah, give it a go. But if you've got a choice in the rental queue between that and The Imitation Game, go for The Imitation Game. No question about it.
So is Eddie gonna win the Oscar? I don't think he's going.
No, he's not, because he's in Jupiter Ascending. So
I'm looking forward to that movie.
All I can remember every time I see the trailer is him as it's a good job he's in the Theory of Everything, because I don't judge performances by trailers, but man, the ham that is coming off, he is emitting radio waves of ham just in the trailer. I will harvest 1,000,000 planets before I let her take it from me. And all that kind of stuff.
That's pretty good.
I know. And there's a bit where he's screaming on the floor, kill her! And that kind of thing. I just don't know what he's doing there. Well, he's being directed, of course, by the Wachowskis. So we'll see. Look, I like the Wachowskis. I'm pretty sure I'm going to like Jupiter Ascending. I'm just not sure I'm going to like him in it.
Bitch bang, mother, bitch bang, bitch, mother.
As far as our show goes, one of the big events that we are going to be building up to throughout the year is that in October, at the end of October, because in the UK, because he's our national treasure, we get Bond first. So when Spectre is released on opening day in the UK, myself, Jamie here, and our good friend, producer, special features maestro, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett, filmmaker himself, who accompanied me to see Skyfall in London when it opened. We will be reuniting. Jamie will be coming to the UK for the first time to see Spectre. Now, as far as the event goes itself, and we will be filming it in London, and we will even be broadcasting from one of the swankiest London hotels, folks, that I booked myself into at great cost, but it's simply to give you guys the quality that you deserve. If you're going to make a movie about the return of Bond's greatest villains, you do it in a Bond villain lair. And the hotel that I picked, I think it's called the Shard in London. This is a Bond villain lair, trust me. If I was Ethan Hunt, I wouldn't even go through the lobby. I'd climb up the damn thing. But I'm not going to do that. But even though we're so super excited about the special event, it is tinged with apprehension, folks, because I have this sinking feeling that Spectre is going to suck and blow. And I'd like to take you through, first of all, before we debate it, my emotional journey with Bond 24 so far. Now, it goes back to before we even knew a thing about the movie. I was simply dealing, as a Bond geek does, in statistics and numbers. And I have this theory that basically the Bond series, as far as the outings and the number of outings that an actor does, there's a certain symmetry to it. So the first movie will be a really solid movie that defines Bond. There's a slight flaw to that theory, because certainly Dr. No defines Connery. I'm not sure you can say Live and Let Die defines Roger Moore. Certainly Living Daylights defines Dalton, and certainly Casino Royale defines Daniel Craig. There's this theory that the third film is really what's known as the blockbuster Bond. That's the one that really hits success. That's the breakout. That's the one that defines that actor's run. So Connery has Goldfinger, Moore has The Spy Who Loved Me. Poor old Dalton never got to make his third, and I guess that you really can't say that the world is not enough defines Brosnan. So there's a flaw in that theory.
Like the world is not enough.
Hey, we all like it, you just can't say it defines that actor's run of the series. But certainly, no doubting it, folks, Skyfall was a bloody phenomenon, and it certainly defined the Craig run, and probably will, no matter what's to come in the future. So, now things get a little bit scary, because we're dealing with the fourth outing. Connery's fourth outing was Thunderball, a cold, soulless, mechanical piece of work that I've never been very fond of. Moore's fourth outing was Moonraker. Brosnan's fourth outing was Die Another Day. And now we have Craig's fourth outing as Spectre. So I think the symmetry that we're talking about with the fourth outing is basically loud, overblown, entirely too much money spent on it, and in worst case scenario like Moonraker, camp to the point of mocking the source material. Now, I'm not saying that Spectre's going to be a Moonraker, but certainly as far as the symmetry goes in my geeky head, that was the first warning light. And then, funny thing happened, folks. Sam Mendes was announced that he was going to be reprising his role as the director. A lot of people were saying, fantastic, awesome, I love Skyfall. Jamie will back me up. My response was, oh no, no. Bring him back at some point, but don't bring him back right away. The simple reason, folks, is that I don't want the same director coming back after such a transcendent, inexplainable success in Skyfall and trying to repeat and recapture lightning in a bottle. Lewis Gilbert directed The Spy Who Loved Me, a huge, gigantic hit beyond anyone's expectations, and if there was ever a Bond film that wanted to capture lightning in a bottle again, it was the next film, Moonraker, which Lewis Gilbert also directed. I don't want Sam Mendes to make Moonraker. It seems crazy, but in that way of trying to just basically repeat what happened in Skyfall, it could happen.
I don't know, man. Skyfall was just, it was such a big hit. It was so unexpected. It took off so much. It's so well. The realist in me has to say, well, there's nowhere else to go. I mean,
I've always accepted that in terms of quality. I'd just be happy with a good film. I'm just worried that when we're in the position that we are now in, that we are going to be a movie that is basically chasing the success of the previous one and trying to do every little beat that was in Skyfall because you know those work. That's what my main concern is. And yeah, folks, I mean, if you watched me on Twitter, when the press conference happened and the title of Spectre was announced and they announced the cast and friggin' Monica Bellucci showing up in the cast, I went crazy. I went absolutely apeshit excited. And why? Because, for many people, including myself, when you say that title, you immediately conjure images in your head of huge layers of Bond being backed by a good guy army facing a huge army of guys in boiler suits. And yes, you think about the ludicrousness of it and the fact that they've been so scared of that image for so long that they haven't been willing to go there. And yet I felt that if they're bringing back all those classic elements that they haven't done for a while and now seem fresh again, then that is the last untamed frontier that they have to go for. In this day and age, Bond has to, and always has, competed against all the other spectacles out there. But why haven't they been able to go back to the big spectacle of not just having Bond by himself win the day, but having backed up by an army, have a huge climax in a huge set? So when I heard the title of Spectre, I thought, and especially when we heard about how high the budget was, my first thought was like anyone else. It was just like, well, yeah, I'm kind of excited it's costing the Earth, because I assume that's what they're doing. And then, over the last couple of weeks, I've just kind of come back down to earth on it, and I've just thought, no, I don't think they're doing that. I don't think they have the courage to do that. I still think they're afraid of the Austin Powers shadow, which seems ridiculous, but I feel like that's the position that we're in.
Which is ridiculous because that fad has come and gone.
Absolutely. I just find that it's, obviously, I know this is going to be a modern interpretation of Spectre, which is absolutely fine. I'm absolutely fine with that. But don't be afraid of the largeness of it. I thought about it and I just thought, well, they're not going to have some really, really delicious plot about either, dominating the world or blowing up a part of it, or a plot which has truly imaginative, exciting global implications. No, it's going to be some really, really complicated but grounded and realistic and not very much fun plot. Are we going to have, really, really inventive new action sequences? No. Is it exciting he's going back to the Alps? Yes. But is the skiing sequence going to be really, really exciting or different? No, I don't think so. Are we going to have new fresh ideas? No, we're probably going to have a sequence on, well, they've already mentioned it in the emails that we've seen. There's going to be another sequence on a train. I would not be at all surprised if there's another attack on MI6, whether it's viral or bombs, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if we go back to London for more action. I wouldn't be surprised if the final climax is just Bond in Christoph Waltz's mansion, and it's very intimate in a lot of ways. I wouldn't be surprised.
We all make Home Alone jokes.
Exactly. I'm just...
Chip said that. We were watching it at midnight. Chip's like, it's Home Alone! He just started...
Everybody says that, but that's fine.
He loved it. I mean, he thinks it's the best one, but he was just like, holy shit, they took from Home Alone!
Yes! And those are my concerns, folks. I hope I've articulated it well, but I just feel like at every point in this movie where we could take it in a fresh and exciting or 60s throwback way, I feel like we're simply just going to go back to the tropes of Skyfall and hopefully dressed up in a way that it doesn't feel like they're literally copying Skyfall, but that's what they're going to do.
Well, Phil, on the 60s, 70s thing, before Matt comes in, I think we're going to get that with the Kingsman, probably. That's probably going to be the closest we're going to get this year to that kind of movie.
No, of course.
As much as I think Kingsman doesn't look that interesting, but then I remember all Matthew Vaughn movies are never sold well. So we'll have that. But in terms of Bond himself, no, they'll never go back to that because they're always moving onward and upward.
Matt.
Phil, I think I'm going to give you a heart attack. Okay, so I am privy to a number of scripts for Spectre. Don't worry to the people listening. I'm not going to pull a Terminator and spoil everything. But I will say, the two films that come to mind when I think of Spectre are both Thunderball and Quantum of Solace. And with your complaints, the third act takes place intimately in the burned-out MI6 building from Skyfall.
Oh, for fuck's sake! No!
But at the same point, M and Moneypenny show up with an army as well. So it's not just Bond at a certain point. It's a good script. It reminds me of Quantum of Solace in the sense that Skyfall was so successful and they're clearly trying to recapture that. But I guess the question is, was Quantum of Solace unsuccessful because it was trying to mimic Casino Royale, or was it unsuccessful because it was a strike movie and they were rushing it so much and they really didn't have much of a script?
The latter.
While Spectre is clearly trying to kind of build off of Skyfall's success, there is a script here. Craig has the most material he's had since Casino Royale. More importantly, I know Craig is signed for one more film. And this is not me being privy to anything in particular, but this feels like the last Craig film. It feels like for the first time, as Bond goes, we are wrapping up an actor's era. So it ties back heavily to Casino Royale. In the same way that Thunderball went back to the overarching plot after Goldfinger was roughly standalone, this does the same thing. We find out, of course, that Silva was somehow involved with Spectre to tie it all together. There aren't any particularly standout action sequences. There's a really cool fight on a train, which is clearly invoking From Russia with Love. The main Bond girl in it, Madeline, they're trying to make her so Vesper-like that she has literally the same intro to Bond in the sense that they're sitting in a train and she breaks him down psychologically in the exact same way Vesper did. Which, again, it's intentional. They're doing this on purpose to tie it around. But I do feel like there is going to be a sense of deja vu watching it. It also makes the issue... You know how people complained in Skyfall that it took Javier Bardem quite a while to enter the movie? In the final draft of the script before shooting, as I recall, Walt's character, out aside of one sneaky Spectre meeting that Bond infiltrates where he's in the shadows, Walt doesn't show up until page 97 of like 120. So there's no real overarching threat. I mean, your main concern is that there's a character named C, who's being played by Andrew Scott from Sherlock, who is trying to close down MI6 and to basically merge every worldwide intelligence organization into one kind of global network where they could spy on everything. And of course, this somehow has, interest to Spectre. The film could benefit from a more present villain. Walt has an amazing monologue he's just going to kill, where basically... in terms of going back to the beginning, he's basically introduced to Bond really playing a poker game for Madeline's life. And, they do the thing where Walt gets to talk and talk and talk, and he's going to kill it. But there isn't a real threat. You have a cool henchman, but you certainly don't have Le Chiffre's not a great villain, but you don't have a Silva. You don't have a Goldfinger. You don't even have kind of the classic Blofeld who dominates the movie. It's very much about Craig's Bond, and on that level it's a success, but I do feel the script is a little bit slight at the moment. I think people will like it more than Quantum of Solace, but I don't think they'll like it as much as Casino Royale and Skyfall.
I'd like to pick up a point that Jamie was mentioning before with Kingsman, the Secret Service. You're right, I'd forgotten about that. I guess as far as, the need that I need to fulfill by having, a villain who wants to, cause some real imaginative world blowing up shit, and having a big army of people fight him in a big lair, and just have the fun of it, that we have to look to the homage, the love letter, to actually give us those things. But that just seems wrong to me. It just seems wrong that why can the love letter do it, but the inspiration can't? I'm still trying to figure this out. That we can't.
I think because the
how
broccoli's...
many of the Bond infiltrating the lair movies were actually any good? Like, how many movies with Blofeld having a giant lair were actually good movies?
Well, I mean, when I say that, though, I'm not...
twice, that's about it.
I am counting something like On Her Majesty's Secret Service as well. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, we think about it as the real one, the one where the guy grows a heart and falls in love. But it is also this delicious plot about Blofeld trying to destroy the world with 12 beautiful women, and at the end of it all boils down to Bond being backed up by an army of really cool Italian gangsters to defeat Blofeld in his wonderful icy mountain peak. That's the kind of thing, and that's why I think that's when they announced that Bond was going to the Alps. I think again, all us fans immediately thought of that and thought, oh, "Is that where it's going to end? It's going to end in the Alps. Blofeld's going to have an icy lair again. Oh man, it's going to be amazing!" And
What do we think about Spy Who Loved Me? Also, the opening. I mean, just that amazing stunt. That's
I will say Blofeld does have a lair. It's just not like a volcano.
No, well, that's fine. I'm not expecting a volcano, of course. No,
but I will say this film certainly has On Her Majesty's Secret Service on its mind. Without going more in depth to it, yes.
I know a little more than I'm letting on to, and I'm just laughing at Matt's comment. Matt, that's going to piss people off. You know what's going to. What's annoying me so far is that Craig has not had a physical villain yet. Because when they announced Javier Bardem for Skyfall,
he'll get that with Dave Bautista's character Hinks. Yeah.
Well, I meant like a main villain, but yeah, that's fine. I want someone who Bond could fight. I like the idea of like having an adversary who Bond could fucking fight himself. And but yeah, actually, that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most of this movie is that guy, because it is fun that we're getting a henchman again. Although we've had henchmen in we got henchmen in Quantum of Solace and in Royale. The
henchman in Quantum of Solace was like a skinny dude with a bowl cut.
Elvis, yes, that's right. But also, I mean, on that point. if I may bring you up on that point, Jamie, because we talked about our concerns with that too, because, look, I don't know if it was officially said by the filmmakers or it was just something that was, hyped up in the press, but the idea of treating Mr. Hinks, as he's called, as what they're hoping will be the next iconic Bond henchman, you don't plan that, you don't aim for that. If it happens by accident. It happens because we, the public, decide. You don't try. When you try, it doesn't work. You tried that with Zhao. I was going to call him Diamond Face, but they were hyping him up to be that. Didn't work. What was the one before that they were trying? I don't know, but it doesn't work.
I think Hinks works. Hinks is a cool character in the script. I don't know if he'll be iconic, but he's a good bad guy.
I don't know about iconic, but I mean, he's one I'm looking forward to the most.
He's a dude who takes people and jams his thumbs down their eyes. All right, at least he has a classic kind of iconic kill thing.
Oh, kind of a Game of Thrones way?
A little,
well,
yeah.
Jaws.
He grabs them, jams his thumbs down their eyes, and kills people that way.
Right, okay. Fair enough. Well, can I ask you another question, which I'm sure is on other people's minds, Matt? Reading it, do you see why it seems to be costing the Earth?
Well, I mean, it's certainly very globetrotting. It's big. It doesn't read terribly bigger than Skyfall. Again, I don't make movie budgets. It could just be like a filming schedule thing. But it feels about as big as Skyfall did. It doesn't feel any smaller than that. The climax is bigger than Skyfall's. Yeah, I mean, you can tell the cost cutting, a lot of it is set in London, which I assume saves them money. But again, it's the tying Craig's era together. I mean, there is a bit where Craig has to assassinate someone that is played almost exactly the same as the Dryden scene at the beginning of Casino Royale. So it makes sense that it would be in a familiar location for Craig with the MI6 and all that. So, I mean, even the whole plot is kicked off, and again, this is very early, and it'll be in the trailer, so I don't think it's a spoiler. The whole plot is kicked off with Bond getting a tape from Judi Dench's M. So, it all goes in a circle. It's supposed to.
I imagine a scene where at the end of the tape, it just goes to, the tape that she taped over, and it's her and her husband having sex.
While they're reading poetry because that was her husband's thing.
Exactly, yes. Tennyson, yes.
Tennyson, yeah.
At the courthouse.
That was actually something I liked about Skyfall, actually. There was the whole passage of time. They acknowledged it, and even, because that little moment in... I remember Phil and I talked about that little moment in Royale where they wake her up in bed, she turns over and hits the button and that thing turns up, and there's they don't say who it is, but it's clearly her husband.
And he talks to her in Quantum of Solace. He's off screen, but he says something to her about getting a phone call.
I don't remember that.
But yeah, because she's getting ready for a bath.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and thank you for reminding me. I forgot about that. But the fact that she has a personal life. These are real people. I like little shit like that. What is she like in real life? Just, that was what I really liked about it. And then realized, oh, wait, her husband's dead.
Yeah, just that time had passed between. It was a nice
so much time had passed, I like stuff like that. And that's actually another problem I've had, and Phil and I have also discussed this. I talk a lot, kids. Is the fact that the last movie was about acknowledging not just Bond, but everybody, including M's, mortality and age. I mean, there's even that great line in the trailer, which is a great line in the movie, where Ray Fiennes says, why didn't you stay dead? There's nothing wrong with admitting that you're not as fast as you used to be. Nobody gets an out like you had. Why don't you just stay out? It would have been perfect for you, dude. And he's not as fast. And the movie, I like the fact that he still trudges on, but is he suddenly going to be Superman again? It's we just is the attitude oh well, we acknowledge that, so we're just going to go back to doing a usual Bond movie again. That's something I've been concerned about.
A trouble with that is repetition, where Skyfall was doing the big "Are we outdated?" M was vigorously, defending MI6 and its need in the world. But then this movie is kind of doing the same MI6 under attack thing politically, where it's oh no, C wants to merge us all and they're going to close the double O's. And are we really needed in the world again? And it's I swear we just did this in the last movie.
So my concerns are legitimate. I don't feel bad at all, Matt. I feel very, very vindicated about this.
The script works. Again, it works by giving Craig his best material since Casino Royale. It works for kind of wrapping up his era. In that sense, it works. Madeline, she's not Vesper or Tracy level, but Madeline's a good Bond girl. It works because Craig's Bond accepts who he is. There's a point in this script where Madeline basically gives him the Katie Holmes Batman Begins, I can't be with you if this is your life. Like, you don't have to do this. And he goes, I know, but I'm making that choice anyway. Bond accepts who he is, which I like as a character. They're giving Craig good material, and I think that will play out well on screen. While we're here, Phil, can I tell you some of the earlier ideas for just to put them out there for the listeners?
I'm just going to put some scotch in this Mountain Dew, and then I'll brace myself for it. Yeah,
swig it up.
So when this movie goes out, the credits are going to read written by John Logan and Neil Purvis and Robert Wade. John Logan will have very little to nothing to do with the final script. Logan was fired from Spectre. And I found out a little bit about his drafts. For one, remember all the rumors about Chiwetel Ejiofor being in Bond 24?
Mm-hmm.
That was because Blofeld was going to be an African warlord that Bond tracked down. Also, we were going to find out that there was a traitor inside MI6, and that traitor was M, who Bond would have to kill. So Ray Fiennes flat out refused to do it. He said, I'm tired of playing villains. No, I will not do that. So Logan took another crack at it. And Tanner became the traitor. I don't know if anyone out there actually remembers who Tanner is, but yes, Tanner is the traitor.
Rory Kinnear, yes, he's the guy who's becoming the regular friendly face of the series now. I always love to
He's the close enough one that I thought he was Villers from Casino Royale, and I got confused because they're pretty much exactly the same character with a different name and different actor. But originally it was Tanner, who Bond confronted, and then Tanner blew his brains out. And then everyone went, no, that sucks, and Logan got fired. And that's when they brought Purvis and Wade in.
Wow.
More you know.
And that's why one of the reasons Spectre has taken so long to come out after Skyfall was a huge hit. They gave everything to Logan, and nobody liked what he did with it. Kind of like Paul Haggis with Quantum of Solace, if you think about it.
Can I also ask, Matt, because the very first rumours we heard about the project was that John wanted to do it as 2 movies, like a big 2-part epic. So did he actually get the chance to write that?
Not to my knowledge, no. As far as I know, he just concentrated on Bond 24, and I have not actually read his version. This is just stuff that I've heard from people who are privy to it. But my impression was it ended on a major cliffhanger, and that would have gone directly into Bond 25.
Right.
Whereas now that doesn't seem to be the case in the current script.
Well, to end the point here, I mean, I'm certainly going to stay with my reservations about it, and I only say that because obviously at this point, folks, having, seen 50 years worth of Bond movies, both the official ones and the unofficial ones, that I do have a different yardstick to judge Bond by than I do other things, and I am a little bit harsher, but it's only coming from a place of love. But what I would say, for some of you out there who are less beholden to it than me, is that there is some comfort to be had. The real genius of the Bond series is this, that if you're not concerned about the continuity, then you can basically watch a James Bond film at any point in the series history, no matter what year it was made, and basically treat that film as something wildly entertaining that has really imaginative sequences, and you don't see the references, you don't see, the movies before that, which is constantly just making a different version of a scene or an action sequence or a stunt or whatever it is. For example, I'm embarrassed to say this, folks, but I don't care. I'm going to tell you, folks. I saw A View to a Kill before I saw Goldfinger. Now, A View to a Kill is a complete rip-off of everything that's in Goldfinger, but because I was a kid watching one of my very first James Bond films, to me, it was just A View to a Kill. It was awesome. It had awesome villains. It had an awesome climax. It had a really interesting plot. Jamie's cracking himself up just listening to me spew this diatribe, but it's true.
It's context. We were younger. We didn't know any better.
And then
I completely agree. Yeah.
And the genius of it is even afterwards, and you see Goldfinger and you know that it's a rip-off, it doesn't matter because you've always had that first impression made by the film that came later. So I'm sure there's plenty of, kids out there who just now are getting into Bond, or maybe Spectre will be their first film. Whatever my issues are about repeating past glories, it's not going to bother them, and it's probably not going to bother most of the audience. If it's a good film like Matt says it has every chance of becoming, then I guess the formula still holds true. So I feel better. I'm glad we hashed this out. We've arrived at the conclusion that I was hoping that we would. Now, folks, I think that that discussion did run a little bit over, so I think we will call it a night there on Classic Movie Moan. So I would like, Matt, thank you so much for at least letting me sleep for the next couple of months while I wait for this movie.
Hibernate.
Don't worry, Phil, I promise. At the very worst, it will be at least slightly better than Die Another Day.
Thanks very much, bitch. All right, and Jamie, I hope are you feeling better about Spectre too? Hello everybody, so welcome to Marvelling at the Future, Movie Moan's dedicated, a little cornered off part where we do deal with the world of the soon-to-be DC Cinematic Universe, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with the Marvel TV Universe, with the Marvel Netflix Universe. Oh, and that's the part that we're really looking forward to, folks. There is no getting away from the fact that comic book movies are a daily part of the movie diet right now, and I say bring it on. Okay, I do feel that having 3 X-Men movies in a year might be a little too much, but if it happens, then it's certainly going to be something interesting to look at, and it just shows how far the genre has come. Folks, it's not like the 90s. We don't get movies like Con Air anymore. These comic book movies, they've kind of replaced those testosterone action pics. They don't make them anymore. Instead, it's all comic book movies. So that feels like something that we have to address and we have to talk about in our usual positive movie moan way. We're not complaining about it. A good movie is a good movie. And also, you're talking to somebody who feels that the genre never really died. People make the argument that the genre has come and gone over the years since it started with Superman the movie. I don't feel like it's ever gone away. There's just been some bad movies, and there have been some good movies. And now we're at the point where consistently you're getting great filmmakers, you're getting great material, you're getting great actors perfectly cast in the parts. You're just getting fun. And that's fantastic to see. So we're going to be here with bells on, covering it all, and especially after the announcements that were made last year, and certain characters whose future is uncertain, let's be honest, like Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. We're here to cover it all. So, obviously you know who I am, but I'd also like to introduce, far more importantly, the essential ingredients, a guy who actually knows what he's talking about. So I'd like to introduce you to my good friend, the warm and cuddly superherohype.com's Mr. Spencer Perry.
Thanks for having me, Phil. I'm really glad to be here.
We are honoured to be doing this together. I am so happy to have Spencer by my side to do this. And I'd like to also, at this point, plug Spencer's newest endeavour, which, as we record, has just launched its first episodes. Spencer, obviously, you do all sorts of things on the hype, but what's your latest venture?
Well, I'll give you the origin story of it. Is that, I'm approaching my 3-year anniversary with Superhero Hype. And I felt like I had just kind of gotten into a groove where it was okay. I was totally content with just writing the news, the stuff that happened. Sometimes I would write a featured article if my boss asked me to write one, but very seldom was I coming up with stuff because I wanted to do it. And I think that I felt like I needed to challenge myself as a writer to put my voice out there a little more, to stretch your fingers a little bit on the keyboard, and put content out there that isn't just, okay, this person is in this movie is coming out this date, here's this poster. So, with that in mind, I came up very quickly with the name Spencer's Soapbox, which hopefully, I'll be tackling things, not necessarily, I wouldn't call it an opinion column, but it's just a column. I want people to think about things in a different way, maybe things that we're not talking about that I think we should be talking about. So, and with that comes the very first one that, a topic that I've kind of been harping on for a while on Twitter and here on Movie Moan, is that the Suicide Squad movie that Warner Brothers is making is very, very important.
So I will encourage everybody here to read that article. But what we'll be doing over the course of the show's run is we'll definitely, I'll have some topics, some meaty debates that I'll want to discuss in the world of comic book movie news and what's to come in the future, because we're marveling at the future, hence the title. But we will certainly occasionally, probably all the time because I'm lazy, we'll take inspiration from Spencer's Soapbox, and we'll give Spencer a platform to, in an audio format, to talk about these very, very, very important issues. So maybe, just maybe, a little bit later, we'll talk about that Suicide Squad movie. But first, I just wanted to let you guys know, because some of you out there who are more partial to the DC characters than the Marvel characters might be rolling your eyes at that title. You might be saying, oh no, that's just what we know they need. Another pro-Marvel show, another show that's completely cynical about anything DC related. Absolutely not, folks. I have a dream. I'd like to share it with all of you. Hopefully Spencer will agree with me. I am a complete slavish fanboy to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I love the X-Men movies when they're good. I love Marvel. I'm definitely a Marvel geek, there's no question about that, but I will fully admit that all of the Marvel Cinematic movies, all the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, put together, don't have as much meat on the bones, as much thematic material to discuss as Man of Steel or The Dark Knight Rises. And absolutely, and I would much rather talk about those movies, regardless of what you thought of them, for an hour and on end, than talk about, Guardians of the Galaxy's soundtrack, which was nice, So I feel like when, and I use that word very, very definitively and positively, when DC Cinematic Universe is up and running, and hopefully running concurrently alongside the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it can be an adversarial thing. You can pick sides if you want, that's absolutely fine. But for me, I feel like that's the best way that they're going to survive. Marvel can be the light and breezy entertainment. The movies are pacey, they're usually under 2 hours, they move, they flip like comic books. They are living comic books. But the DC movies, I really feel like the opportunity they have is to make movies that are built to last. Because I truly believe movies like the Nolan Batman trilogy and Man of Steel are movies that are built to last. The Superman Returns as well, I almost forgot that one. Not so sure about Green Lantern, but, that's okay, everyone can have a blip. So I really, really hope that that's the way that the two universes can define themselves. I want DC to be the movies that we spend hours debating. I hope those movies aren't as clear-cut good or bad movies as the Marvel movies seem to be. Marvel does play it safe. They're populist entertainment. DC, those movies can be challenging because, let's be honest, people seem to have far more passionate opinions about how a Superman or a Batman movie or a Wonder Woman movie, if we ever get to one, should be done than they do about how the next Thor movie comes out. I mean, that's a fact. So that really gives us an opportunity to get great, interesting movies that we can spend 4 hours discussing in our virtual pub here. So that's my hope and dream. I don't know what Spencer feels about that.
No, I totally agree. You know, I will point out that not too long after the first Spencer's Soapbox was launched, I was hardly accused of being a WB shill. So, yeah, I'm with you.
Can I just clarify, Spencer? Yeah. Was it because you dared to say that you hope Suicide Squad is good?
I think so.
I'm sorry, ignore that, folks. Well, let's move on then. Let's start by delving into the TV universe and talking about Marvel's Agent Carter, which saw its double bill premiere of the first 2 episodes this week, the new series on ABC. The after-war adventures of the friggin' gorgeous Hayley Atwell's character from Captain America, which was inspired from a short film that they put on the Iron Man 3 Blu-ray, I believe, and I was a big fan of that. But it seemed clear to me after watching the show that as far as the continuity is concerned, and I'm a big geek for continuity, just pretend the short film doesn't exist, because it never happened now. The show is... Which
brings up the question, if that one doesn't count, do the other one-shots count too?
Well, we've still got...
That's the topic for another day.
We've still got to see what they do with the Mandarin from this point on. But I mean, how many have there been, really?
Well, there was... let's start in reverse. There was Agent Carter.
Mm-hmm.
There was the Mandarin one. I don't remember what it was called.
Hail to the King.
Hail to the King. There was a funny thing happened on the way to Thor's hammer, which was Coulson and...
Coulson buying snowballs. Not much to retcon there. I think we can...
Coulson and Sitwell, I think, which will be interesting to rewatch since Sitwell was proven to be a Hydra agent.
Yes.
And then there was the... Oh, man, what's it called? It's the one where Tony Stark goes to... It's the one that explains Incredible Hulk's post-credits.
The Consultant, yeah.
That's it, the Consultant.
That was funny because they and there's Item 47 as well.
Item 47, that's right.
Which, ironically, I feel like that short film, which is about basically a Chitauri gun that falls into the hands of 2 bank robbers, I feel like that short has a much more fun plot than anything in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And that's why...
Even though it was the seed for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Exactly so, yeah. I just don't know why they didn't... Well, that's a topic for another day, it's fine. But anyway, the question, Spencer, is that the short film was the inspiration for the new show. Do you think the show itself is suitably inspired?
You know, I haven't watched I should have watched the short before I watched the show again, because I can't recall the last time I saw it. But I think that you can see the DNA of that short in this show, because you know it's definitely, it has a lot of the same kind of themes, it has a lot of the same sort of, not necessarily moments, but maybe beats in the story are kind of similar, where you know Carter works for this agency but they don't really treat her like an equal since she's a woman, but then in the shadows she's much better than her co-workers. So I think it kind of works. As far as an adaptation goes, I'd have to rewatch it, but I think it works.
Yeah, I agree. I liked it a lot. It tapped into something that I've always personally been fascinated by, which is what happened to the men and women of the free world right after World War II. How did it change them, and how much had the world changed them? Because, you know, it's funny, but a game like LA Noire, if you've played that really taps into that, because that also takes place right after WW2, and some guys become cops after they've been soldiers, some become criminals. You'd think a world war would unite everyone in a strong concept of what was right and wrong, but it didn't really happen. And then this show really addresses what happened to the women. The world during the war needed to change because it was instrumental that every able-bodied person would have great responsibility shouldered on them. Women were instrumental in the war effort, and they'd be right to expect that when they came home, that the opportunities they would get would still be available, the same opportunities that they got during the war. And it didn't happen. So, I mean, for example, how is a woman who handled priority communique during the war expected to now work as a waitress at the automat?
Yeah.
You know? And luckily Peggy isn't in that position, but she might as well be. This isn't a world where the president picks up the phone and says, "Get me Agent Carter." It's a world where her boss says, "Leave the coffee there, toots." You know, it's definitely a girl power show, but it's not in a heavy-handed way.
No.
Instead, I think it brilliantly makes sure that during every adventure Peggy gets herself into, she wins the day in a way that a man would not be able to. She validates why she's Agent Carter. She seduces the mobsters. She hides from her fellow agents in that club that she's not supposed to be in by dancing with a guy. She defuses a bomb with a perfume spritzer. You get the idea. And Peggy's got a lot of pressure on her in these shows because she's not only trying to save the world by herself, but she's also having to try and lead a covert normal life, which she's not sure that she can lead after her roommate gets killed, which was a real shock to me. I didn't see that coming. She was in bed with the flu. And then she gets shot in the head. That's not cool. And now it seems like by the end of episode 2, she's going to be living in an all-girls hotel. So we'll see. That could be horrible, but it could be okay. We'll see what happens there. And at the same time as leading that normal life and not cluing any of them into what she does, she also has to make sure that her colleagues at the Strategic Science Reserve don't find out what she's up to either. And I love her relationship with Jarvis. She's got a real cat and mouse thing going on with that one friend that she has at the SSR. And I'm sure that, this occurred to you, Spencer, the big mystery of Peggy's life that the Winter Soldier movie asked was, who was her husband?
Yeah.
She mentions in that movie that Captain America saved the man who would eventually become her husband. I assumed it was one of the Howling Commandos, like the British one.
Could be.
But maybe that's too cliche. Of course she'd marry the British one. She wouldn't marry Dum Dum. And by the way, I am sure that the Howling Commandos will show up at some point. Dum Dum showed up for a cameo in the short film, certainly, so I'm sure they will be coming up. But Peggy's...
Here's a theory for you, though.
Sure.
Is that I feel like they've introduced the idea of these Captain America radio plays into the series, which Peggy clearly does not like, and I think they're quite funny because they're very dated, but I love that old radio voice. So anytime someone is talking that way, my ears kind of perk up. But perhaps what if it's that someone, be it the guy that she's friends with at the SSR, is in some sort of peril and is in some roundabout way helped by the Captain America radio broadcast, and in her old age when it seems she's suffering from dementia, she kind of confuses that and thinks that Steve really did save him.
Oh, wow, that's deep. Well, no, it absolutely could.
Maybe I'm giving him a little too much credit. That's like I saw an article today about the young man that plays the Penguin in Gotham reacting to a fan theory that he's actually the Joker, not the Penguin, and I was like, they're not that smart, man.
Well, I mean, for Ultimate Nerdvana, I'd like to see in another episode of the Captain America Adventure Hour, as it's called, if they tried and emulated the voices from the 60s Captain America cartoons, or the song. Wouldn't that be great?
Oh, yeah. I wonder who owns that stuff.
I think it's public domain,
Yeah?
I'm not quite sure, but I think it could be. It's definitely... I mean, it was a Canadian animation company that went under soon after they did the Spider-Man show. I don't know. I really don't. I know that they're...
It might be Marvel, because I don't know if you're reading, but they're doing a big series now called Spider-Verse, which is every Spider-Man ever coming together to fight a foe. And part of that is they have included the 60s Spider-Man cartoon.
Cool. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So
actually,
maybe Marvel owns it.
It can't be public domain because there would have been so many different versions of it on DVD just to cash in for the movies if it was public domain. I'm probably getting confused with the Fleischer Superman cartoons, which were public domain for a long time. The only complaint I had about the shows was that the overarching plot's a good hook. Howard Stark is under attack for being a goddamn commie, and his weapons are all out there, and of course, that's just the perfect excuse for any kind of crazy doohickey you want to put together for the week, you know. Stark's always inventing stuff, so this week he's invented, you know, whatever, a pen that's a laser, whatever it might be, you know, you can just come up with crazy stuff. But the plot hook, which seems to be carrying through the season, is essentially the same idea that was in the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There's this mysterious, unseen villain, which is either a person or a something else, and it goes by a cryptic code name. In that show it was Centipede and the Clairvoyant, and in Agent Carter we have Leviathan, whatever that is.
Though we do have a basis for Leviathan within the source material.
Yes,
we didn't with Centipede or the Clairvoyant. So
the Russians, I believe, is it?
Yeah, it's the people that made the Winter Soldier.
Ah, right. Okay. I'll go with that. I mean, what I wanted to ask you, Spencer, is assuming that Agent Carter does have itself a good run, and assuming that it has carte blanche to run freely through the entire back history of the MCU, what do you want to see from the show in the future?
I remember talking with this, I don't remember where I was, but, you know, around other journalists, and we were all talking about Agent Carter, and how this first season is only 8 episodes, but that they're calling it a limited series, but there's still potential to do it again, do another one. And I like the idea of not necessarily picking up where this one will end. So I'm interested to see, you know, a 50s or a 60s Agent Carter. I want to see the season about the death of the Starks and investigating the death of the Starks. Not that, you know, I don't want them to step on the MCU's toes, or for Marvel Studios to feel like they're stepping on their toes, in that to craft a story kind of centered around what people think the Winter Soldier should be involved in. Mm-hmm. But I would love to see a story where he kind of gets roped into it. I want to see more of the seeds that they've planted already in the MCU to be explored on this, because I think that's the advantage that this show already has, is that being a limited series, only 8 episodes, and it's cornered off by itself, so it's not telling these grandiose, huge stories like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Avengers or, you know, any of the other Marvel stories, but it's telling its own thing, but it's filling you in on little details. So, you know, I want them to play in their little sandbox, but hopefully they can shuffle sand in from other places.
I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but Peggy's dementia is in its own way this very neat, convenient little plot point, which means that you can do things. There's nothing to say that Peggy never faced the Winter Soldier. Exactly. She just never would have mentioned it. And it's clearly stated that the Winter Soldier assassinated Howard Stark. Which is clearly playing into Civil War. I mean, there's just no question about that.
Here's a pitch for season 2.
Okay.
I like the idea that they do on American Horror Story, where the first season was American Horror Story, but every following one has been American Horror Story : something else. So what if they do that with Agent Carter? So this one's just Agent Carter, but season 2 is Agent Carter : and the Howling Commandos. Mm-hmm. So let's just throw that title out there: Agent Carter and the Howling Commandos.
I'm there. I'll go for that. I mean, I am thinking a bit big. It's weird because it's a miniseries, but I'm thinking bigger for Agent Carter than I ever thought for S.H.I.E.L.D. Because I remember when S.H.I.E.L.D. was first announced, and we didn't know what it was about at the time, but the first thing that popped into my head was that it would be cool to see a kind of anthology type show that shows S.H.I.E.L.D. agents throughout the decades, and we could see modern S.H.I.E.L.D., but we could also go back to just after the war and see it being created, and we could also see some cool 60s S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and really pay homage to, you know, the way Nick Fury was in the 60s, and they didn't make that show, but I just feel like Agent Carter could fill that need. There's nothing to say that this has to stay confined in the 40s. We can go through the 50s, we can go into the swinging 60s, and I feel personally that those early Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, John Jazzy Romita, Stan Lee comics, they were so inspirational and continue to be to everything that we're seeing, that I think that they deserve a direct love letter of some sort. I mean, they were always more fun to me than DC because they had that swinging 60s spirit infused in them, and I just don't think there's going to be any other opportunity in the MCU to pay direct homage to that. I mean, just as a direct specific example, I think it would be a shame if they didn't bring back AIM, but have it be the funky Pepper Pot men from the comics, you know, because it's period, no one will blink an eye. You know, just keep having fun with it in that way. Not Hydra. I'm kind of getting a bit bored of Hydra now. You know, I think we've had a little too much Hydra. But I guess obviously, what's his name? Dr. Zola. He's probably going to show up in the show. He'll have to, really, if they recruited him.
That's correct. Yeah.
He's an instrumental part of the history. But
here's a long-reaching prediction or speculation: is that for the longest time, one of these long-running fan theories on the internet is that James Bond is a code name, and that all these actors exist in the same continuity. They're not playing the same character. They're different people, but they're all called James Bond. What if they took something like that, but Nick Fury is a code name in the MCU, and they introduced, quote-unquote, the original Nick Fury in Agent Carter?
I'm not adverse to that. I could go with that.
Yeah.
There'll be people insisting it's Hasselhoff, but we'll have to live with that. I mean, do you have a pick? Like, who do you think could play that part?
I lost his name.
What's he been in?
He's the lead in Justified.
Oh, that's
Timothy Olyphant.
I'll tell you. Oh, Ollie Fantastic. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's an interesting choice. It's a bit lazy, but he's always the pain reliever I go to. James Marsden. I feel like it's weird that I felt like it was self-evident that the Marvel Cinematic Universe was going to pinch him to play a part at some point. Maybe he doesn't want one, I'm not quite sure, but you've got to have the Marsden in something.
I would say that, his ties to Fox would preclude him from that, and given that he is sort of back after Days of Future Past.
Oh, I didn't think of that, that's true.
But they're bringing in a young Cyclops for Apocalypse, so who knows if he's ever really going to be who knows if he's ever going to be Cyclops in another X-Men movie?
Right, of course. Well, we'll wait and see. But I've always got Marsden's back. I mean, that's what I'm going to say. So I guess it's a recommendation. We're going to stick with it. We're going to stick with the show. We're not going to review each episode while we're doing our show, folks, because we've got other things that we want to talk about. Unless, of course, Nick Fury shows up, that exact thing happens. In that case, of course, we will bring it up, and I'll say Spencer told you so. But now, speaking of television, yes, we will talk about the Ant-Man trailer, folks. That's coming up before. But Spencer did remind me before we come on that there is absolutely no way that we can't mention the thing that certainly I am most excited about this year. I have more invested in this project working than anything that's coming out in film this year, honestly. Daredevil, of course, is the very first Marvel Netflix show. We thought it was coming out in May, probably like late May, after we got Avengers, and we'd be having a really merry Marvel month in May. No! They said no! We're getting it April 10th, I believe is the date. They've given us a motion poster. They haven't given us much else yet, but I did not see that coming, and I cannot friggin' wait. I mean, where are you coming into this show? What's your level of hype and passion right now, Spencer?
Oh, man, because, when I first got my job with Superhero Hype, my boss asked me, so who are your favorite superheroes? And the three that I told him were Green Arrow, Swamp Thing, and Daredevil. So Daredevil is like, a lot of people, Batman is, he's it. It's Batman. He's the best one. But Daredevil is my guy. Like, I love that character so much. So it's very hard for me to not be super excited by everything I see, even if some of the elements or photos, things that they've released have underwhelmed a lot of other people. I'm still the champion that's like, guys, look, it's Daredevil. So, I mean, I think I'm more excited for Daredevil at this moment than I am Avengers, but that's only because I get Daredevil before Avengers.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm right there with you. To me, my experience with Daredevil's been an interesting one in there, and I'll always say this, folks, say what you want about the movie, and you have, all of us, but I will never diss that film. I know it's flawed, but that movie was interesting enough and showed me enough for the character that I started reading Daredevil comics. And once I did, he very quickly became my favourite Marvel character. And the more and more I thought about it, the more I just thought, how frustrating is it that people are thinking, just because of their exposure to that movie, that he's some kind of really crappy rape Batman imitator,
Yeah.
and it's not true. He's a beautifully written character, and it was one of those no-brainers that, they were trying to get another movie, and Joe Carnahan put together that little proof of concept footage about doing a new Daredevil movie set in the 70s, and it never went anywhere. Personally, I was for it just because I wanted to see something, anything, just a way to make this thing work. And the most obvious thing was to do it as a television show, because if you've read the books, if you've read the the Bendis run of the character from the 2000s, if you've read the Brubaker run, which followed on from that and was almost as good. I mean, they read like seasons of a television show. And that's not to even go into, obviously, the biggest arcs of Daredevil's career, the Frank Miller work, the Elektra saga, Born Again. That's by the way, folks, I will predict that right now. I predict we're going to get future seasons of Daredevil, and I predict that right now, season 1, the inspiration is very much the miniseries called The Man Without Fear, which was Frank Miller's definitive take on the origin of Daredevil. I do believe that season 2, they will get round to it, and that will be the Elektra saga, done properly. And then I think season 3 will be Born Again, in which Karen Page, who is in this season, sells out the true identity of Daredevil for a quick fix of drugs, and ends up completely destroying the life of the man that she cares the most about, because that information very quickly falls into the hands of the Kingpin.
How wonderful would it be, though, if they'd lay out those 3 seasons, they take a break for a while, and then they come back with season 4 that is Daredevil End of Days.
Oh man, well, End of Days is I don't mind. I read End of Days on your recommendation, and I just got depressed because I don't want. Well, I think we talked about this. I mean, there's a debate about whether it's just a what if story, because folks, without spoiling too much, I mean, it's if you treat End of Days as continuity, it's the last story. It's the end of Matt Murdock, and it's not a happy ending. I don't suppose it ever was going to be a happy ending for Matt Murdock. His life is defined by misery. I'll warn you, folks, if you're not ready for it, this is not going to be a cheerful show. If they do it right, this is not going to be chirpy. This is not going to be light. This is not going to be the kind of thing that would air Tuesday nights, 8 o'clock on ABC, basically. Netflix is the perfect place for it.
Well, and with End of Days, it's unhappy for a Matt Murdock, but for the legacy of Daredevil, it's quite incredible. Yeah.
Anybody could be Daredevil. That was the point. So we're really looking forward to it. Spencer wants a trailer. Personally, I don't. Just think about it this way, Spencer. Imagine when April 10th comes along, imagine if you have not seen a frame of this show. All you've seen is that motion poster, and obviously that one still of the costume. And then there's the entire season all laid out for you, and you have no idea what you're about to see. Wouldn't you rather have that? Wouldn't that be amazing?
You present an excellent point, because I'll make an analogy for you, is that, now I'm at the age where when Christmas rolls around, people just say, what do you want for Christmas? And then I tell them, and then that's what I end up getting. But when I was a kid, I would say things that I wanted for Christmas, but then I would get things before Christmas that I had never thought that I should ask for, never would have thought of asking, but it exceeded the things that I would have wanted. So I think you're right. I think that, not knowing a thing about it and then just diving right in would be ideal. But, I mean, I run one of the big superhero websites, so I kind of have to watch I don't have to watch every ad that comes out, but, I'm sure they're going to put out about 400 trailers or TV spots for this one, so I'll end up seeing a handful of them.
It's a terrible crux to bear, but I suppose you doing that and us doing this show, I suppose when they bring it out, as much as I'd like to not watch it, we are going to watch it. We're just too excited, but it's so close, folks. I can't believe how close it is. And we haven't decided exactly how we're going to basically do our coverage of it, whether it's going to be reviews of every single episode, simply because of the nature of the way it's going to be released all in one go. It's a lot to digest, so I think we're going to be debating how we do it all the way up to the end, and how we watch it too. Like we've been debating off air, do we binge watch it or do we digest it? I'll be debating that within my own head right up until the end. But man, I'm gonna be having dreams about this thing. Oh man, so excited. Now, the Ant-Man trailer that came out this week. Spencer, I'm gonna shoot you straight. I'm always gonna shoot you straight, buddy. This was a terrible trailer. This was a terrible trailer, and I'll tell you, folks, I'm coming into Ant-Man extremely amped up for two reasons. Number one is that I love the concept of it, that it's a heist movie, and number two, I love the idea that it's about a guy who can turn little and all the inventive things you can do visually and with action sequences. The trailer sells neither of those things, and I'm really, really scratching my head about this. Like, it's perfectly set up to sell it as a heist movie. It's got this whole kind of, I want to say almost a Mask of Zorro-esque thing where Michael Douglas is the Anthony Hopkins character in this place, and he's picking up the young thief vagabond and giving him a second chance speech, blah blah blah. But the nice twist to that would have been, okay, so how do I redeem myself? I want you to break into my building and steal some shit, but they don't do that. And we only get one money shot, and it's of him riding an ant, which is fine, because, it's certainly a quirky image, but that's it. I guess I'm reminded of a line that our good friend Gabe Toro, film critic, he gave this line when we saw the first trailer for X-Men Days of Future Past, which had very little money shots in it, and his quote was, "Hey, we're a big special effects movie, and none of our special effects are done yet." It feels very much like that. What did you think of it?
I won't be quite as negative as to say that it was a terrible trailer, but I don't think it was as good as it could have been. And I will point out, just as a side note, that a lot of people are saying that perhaps these special effects we saw in the trailer are the ones that they showed at Comic-Con last year. Mm-hmm. So it's possible that, they're so not done with the effects that they're having to use the stuff that they made, a year and a half ago. So, there are parts of the trailer I really enjoy. I think that the bit when he's in the suit and he hits the button and turns small, I think that looked really cool. I'm interested in how they're going to continue to sell this one, because a lot of the complaints I've seen about the trailer is that in regard to the tone, which is a little more morose, kind of not necessarily dark, but far more dramatic, which puzzles people, given that previously it's been referred to as one of their funnier films. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that complaining about the tone in the trailer not matching with what we have been told verbally in the press, I'm not sure how valid that is as a complaint, because I don't think you get to say what the tone is until you see it, and Marvel establishes what the tone is.
Yes.
So I'm not sure how I followed people in that regard, but is it a great trailer? No, not really. But I wouldn't say it's a terrible one either. I think it does what a teaser trailer for a movie called Ant-Man needs to do, which is to let you know that there is a movie called Ant-Man coming out. he can turn tiny, he can ride ants, and that Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas and Evangeline Lilly are all in it, and they all look beautiful.
Well, I'm happy for you. I really am. I really am. Well, see, I think this might be one of the kind of points where me and Spencer always lock heads. You just got to understand, folks, I come from... This is going to sound so pretentious, because Spencer also comes from a time when I remember trailers, whether they were teaser trailers or whatever, they were works of art. You know, they were, and I'm not coming at this from a place of nostalgia. I'm talking about movies whose trailers, you know, really did sell a little mini story that really, when they had shots in them, every shot was useful in conveying what the story was going to be. Ant-Man is the kind of trailer where, I am guessing because the visual effects aren't done, they need to very rapidly cut together some action shots, but all they can cut together is, you know, cars running across an alley and, you know, some feet running and some what looks like some kung fu and people walking across corridors.
The one action shot where, and I only know it because I did the screen grabs of the trailer, is that Ant-Man is throwing Corey Stoll's character Darren Cross through a window. But I mean, if that's as big as you get in action, then
exactly.
Might want to think that over again.
Now, I'll tell you what I did like. This movie does seem to have a hook to it that for the first time we're getting a superhero who is domesticated with a family. He has a daughter. He has somebody who apparently looks up to him here, but he has this great pain and he feels like he's a complete fuck up and a letdown, and he wants to be a hero on a very small and intimate scale just to get respect from his child. Now, you know, some people might not go for that. Personally, I find it very human, very relatable, very, very cool. And it's so weird because there's been movies before that have, like, tried to go for that. Like, do you remember that? I always pick on it, but you remember that bit in Green Lantern where, you know, Hal Jordan has this completely extraneous relationship with, I think it's his nephew or something at the beginning of the movie, and it has no bearing on anything, but it's, you know, but it's a nice idea to have a superhero story like that. I can't think of any other, you know, comic book superhero that's gonna have that kind of relationship in it, so I'm all for that.
Another element that they're building with this movie that they're not necessarily doing right now with other Marvel films is that it's a hero with the idea of legacy. So it's Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man, handing off the mantle of Ant-Man to someone else. And, you know, that's definitely an idea that plays through comics for decades, and it's something that they'll probably end up doing again. You know, Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, they've all been different people. So it's possible they can do it again in the films, but it's interesting that this is the film they chose to explore the theme of legacy. And I think that's definitely something to keep in mind about this movie.
Well, again, I mention The Mask of Zorro. You don't think Mask of Zorro is a comic book movie, but in actual fact, I think it's one of the most perfectly constructed comic book movies that exists. And it really, you know, it came out in '98 when they didn't really make good ones. Well, Blade was that summer. Blade kicked everything off, but, you know, it really fulfilled a need back in the day, and I always go back to that movie. So if it's got that kind of tone to it and that kind of story, which it seems that it has, then I'm all on board. I have every faith in the movie. I just feel like, I do feel like it was a real waste of a trailer. I don't think it sold the concept at all.
I agree, but I also think that at least in the circles we run in, it has it working against it. The baggage it carries is working against it. That, you know, people that wanted the Edgar Wright Ant-Man and are seeing the Peyton Reed Ant-Man, they don't like it because it's not the Edgar Wright Ant-Man. And I worry that will work against the film, but I'm not worried about that in regard to how this movie is played to the public, because I saw plenty of people I know who don't follow movie news as closely as some of us reacting to the Ant-Man trailer and reacting positively. So as long as they can get the people that they're worried don't know about or appreciate or will understand Ant-Man, as long as they can get them in the theater, they did the job, because people like us, even though we may not have responded as positively to the first trailer as they would have wanted, we're still going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I will say, I'm glad we're recording this today, because today a couple of new stills have come out, and I really like the stills. There's this one shot of Scott Lang, and he's got the Ant-Man suit, and it's just hung up over the bath.
Yeah,
I like that a lot, and I think that there's the shot in the trailer where he gives a thumbs up and he shrinks. I think he's in the bathtub. So,
yeah, they just released a couple of more.
Oh,
actually.
right.
And one of them is him in the suit, standing in the bathtub.
That's great. That's great. I mean, actually, and then that's the kind of thing that I don't feel people are taking into consideration right now. Certainly as far as how this is going to, if it's done well, fire up the imagination of young kids. Like, if you have this extraordinary superhero, you shrink him down to tiny size, but you put him in, just normal household situations like the bathtub. Well, what happens the next time the kid takes his little Ant-Man action figure into the bathtub? Holy shit, I just realised that, the Ant-Man action figure, it's you can basically pretend you have Scott Lang in your hand.
Yeah.
He's real, but he's small, and, you can have him fight the dog and all kinds of things, and, man, it's
and building off of that, a lot of the interviews that Whedon did about Age of Ultron when they were first going into production, when he was talking about adding Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver to the team, was that he didn't want to add any more characters who only had punching powers. And now he has another character. They have another character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe who doesn't have just punching powers.
No. So it's all right. And again, folks, if we ever get, and this is a thing to remember. Perspective is everything. Because we all do get cynical from time to time. It's just the nature of being on the internet for too long. You don't even know it's happening to you. We've all had those moments where we just turn up our noses and everything. But think about it this way. If you love these characters as children, and the fact that they're getting made, who else would make Ant-Man? Who else would even entertain the notion of a movie called Ant-Man? Think about it. Can you even believe that a movie called Ant-Man exists and is one of this summer's big movies? It blows my mind. It really does. I'm just grateful that it exists. And it can't be wasted.
So that is still the attitude we had when Green Lantern came out.
Well, sure. And
a lot of people were saying, I'd rather have a Green Lantern movie as opposed to no Green Lantern movie, which you're teetering on being in trouble with a statement like that.
I think that's a debate for another time. I want to bring in Randall on that one. Yeah, definitely. Right, folks. Well, I was really, really happy with that. I feel like we've got a show here which is just as light and breezy as the best of those Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. So hopefully you'll stick with us as we go through it. It's going to be fun and exciting for us, because certainly you never know when the next piece of news is going to hit. Like right now, of course, as I'm sure you're all aware, they seem to be entertaining some crazy, fascinating notion that Batman v Superman is now 2 films. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think it's true. All I know is, if it was, though, I would friggin' applaud WB for the greatest sleight of hand that... Because, of course, that's what I've been moaning about, the fact that this movie, which they've been filming for so long, is still so far away. It's still more than a year away. It's bonkers to me. So it would be nice if they gave us a double bill, but no, I guess that's not going to happen.
Yeah, we can dream, though.
We can dream. We can make one. Especially, part 1's where nothing happens, a big business. Mockingjay Part 1 proved that, definitely. So I wouldn't be surprised. And our friend Jamie's always wanted that movie where we just follow Alfred around the house. So if Batman v Superman Part 1 is just that, then I think there's a market for it. But we'll see what happens. And I don't know if it's happened yet, but is there still a Spidey Summit happening, top secret location somewhere?
After it kind of came out as part of the Sony hack that was a thing they were going to do, no one's ever mentioned it again. So I'm sure it will, because they don't know what they're doing so much. But I don't know that it'll be quite as publicized as it was, simply because the only reason we found out about it was through illicit means.
I just love the idea of it. I love the idea of, them all meeting at the United Nations and there being that much, press speculation. Because it would be, if it was a publicised event, if the geek crowd knew that the Spidey Summit was happening right then and there, people would be on the hype forums and stuff, and they'd just be waiting, lighting candles, waiting for news to come out, waiting for Feige to come out and say, it is done. It is accomplished. He's coming to the MCU. Oh, you can dream, can't you? Well, I hope you'll join us little dreamers, every show as we do Marveling at the Future. We don't just intend to have just me and Spencer gabbing on every week. We've also got a couple of other good friends who are just as passionate about comic book movies and comic book television that I would love for you to meet, and hopefully you'll get to meet them very, very soon. Until then, Spencer, thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
We'll see you very shortly. Hello everybody and welcome to Cinematic Happy Comfort Food. This is going to be the regular feature of the show that we always end on because it's about, as its title suggests, happiness, positivity. It's about reminding ourselves why we got into movie punditry in the first place, why we love cinema, by inviting a special guest each week to discuss not necessarily their favourite film, but the one that they pull off the DVD shelf whenever they need to warm their cinematic belly, whenever they need to feel good about cinema, about life, or about themselves. I'm sure you've all got one film like that, the one film you've seen 500 billion times, but your arm's moving across that shelf and it just naturally pulls you to that film again and again because it has some emotional significance linked to why you fell in love with cinema in the first place. So, I'd like to introduce our very first special guest, a good friend of mine, way more knowledgeable about film than me, way more powerfully connected in the industry than me, and Mr. Matt Thompson. And Matt, what have you chosen for us tonight?
Well, Phil, thinking about a positive film, a film that makes me happy, a film that just is so joyful and great, I felt the obvious pick was John Carpenter's Halloween. I mean, that makes everyone happy, right?
Right.
Well, so much of picking basically cinematic comfort food is the connection to when we saw it. And for me, I have a funny story with Halloween where when I was a kid, outside of something like Scream, I didn't watch any horror movies, and I was utterly terrified of Michael Myers. Seeing his mask would freak me out just on sight, to the point where my mother would torment me as a child. If it was on television at some point, she would put it on just long enough for me to hear the Halloween theme, so I went running out of the room. So at a certain point, I decided, all right, I'm going to get over this. I'm going to get over this fear. I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to man up, so to speak, and we're going to get through this so I'm not a little sissy anymore. So we sit down, and on TV is, sadly not the first film, it's Halloween H2O with Jamie Lee Curtis. Now, luckily I said I liked Scream, and I didn't realize at that point that H2O was a rather obvious ripoff of Scream. So we sit down, we watch H2O, get through the whole thing, and my mother looks at me and she goes, "You better now?" And I went, "You know what? I kind of liked it." So at that very night, I went to Blockbuster. Now, for the kids listening to the podcast, a Blockbuster is where they would have videotapes that we would go pick up and watch. I realize I'm showing my age here. I'm sorry, guys. I promise it's not a sci-fi concept. It really existed.
Sorcery!
So I went to Blockbuster. I rented the VHS. And luckily, the only copy of Halloween they had was the widescreen copy. So I got the widescreen copy, went home, plugged it into the VCR, and I sat down and I watched. And I can't explain exactly what moment it was. I can't say whether it was the end of the film or halfway through. But at some point during that film, it clicked. boom, I saw it, I smiled, and I thought, I want to make movies. I can't explain it any deeper than that. I saw it and just something. Halloween, literally, as sad as this is, changed my life. And then I spent the whole summer after that watching every Halloween, every Elm Street, every Friday the 13th, every Hellraiser, every horror film I could get my hands on. It was my favorite summer I've ever had. So much fun.
You know what? I think I know what you're talking about, because I was reminded of two things. Number one, I'm glad you mentioned VHS, because prior to you choosing this film, my only experience with this film has been on a scuzzy VHS tape that my mum bought me, which was it was a double pack. See, this is basically, kids, in days of yore, amazingly enough, they give you bang for your buck. Occasionally they give you a VHS tape which had 2 films on it. Ooh. Double value pack. So I had this double value pack of Halloween 1 and Halloween 2 the night after. I don't think that's the official subtitle, but it might as well be. It's a good double bill to watch. It really is. If you want the ultimate 3-hour epic, you might as well treat them as one movie, because they take place over two consecutive nights. Because it was on this really low-res VHS tape, it really was a shock to the system watching it last night on Blu-ray for the first time to see, wow, this film's beautifully made.
It's an utterly gorgeous film.
Every single shot is widescreen. Like, if someone is doing something as simple as strolling through a kitchen or making a pumpkin or talking on the phone about, about to fuck some kid or whatever it might be, they take full advantage of the frame. You get a lot in that frame. And I really, really appreciate stuff like that. I really appreciate someone who takes the time to make what I'm looking at, whether it be a kitchen sideboard or Michael Myers' face, really, really interesting. And I was also reminded of the comment that Gene Siskel made a long time ago on the Siskel and Ebert infamous Women in Danger show. It was a show where they talked about basically the unfortunate side effect of Halloween, which was this deluge of exploitation movies like Prom Night and April Fool's Day, get it? And Horror Train, Horror Hospital, you name it, they made them. And but they were concerned about the idea of all these movies basically depicting mad dog killers killing young, defenseless women. And then they turned it around and said, but we liked Halloween, and we'll show you why we liked Halloween. And Siskel pointed out, not only does Halloween not hate women, it loves film. It loves filmmaking. Yes, to me, it's not a movie where I feel really immersed in it, to be completely honest with you. I really do notice the filmmaking style. I don't know what John Carpenter would feel about me saying that, but I don't think of it as a bad thing. I really, really see it as the kind of thing where, hey, a guy just holding a camera with his, a couple of $1,000s worth of equipment and a good team, they really can accomplish something really, really beautiful just by shooting the simplest little story in suburbia. And I was really, I really want to thank you for taking me back to it. I was really, really surprised by how much, and I wonder if a lot of people have been in that same boat as me, that not only the Halloween franchise itself, but there have been so many movies that you really do lose sight of the fact that, hey, if you just watch the first one again, you'll kind of understand why. There's a genre.
It's a really impressive film, and you know what? Some people would think of this as kind of me slagging the film, and I'm not. Going to your connection, Halloween is in many ways a stylistic exercise. I mean, it's an utterly simple story told really, really well. Visually, just Dean Kundi's cinematography on that film, every space of the frame. I mean, it's absolutely amazing how many times you can watch that film and spot the shape in the background when you didn't realize it before, just because of the depth of the frame, of hiding him in different spaces. It's really well done. And, so many of Carpenter's films are like that. To turn it away, if I'm actually genuinely being honest, I think The Thing is probably a slightly better movie for Carpenter, but the same brilliant cinematography. The Thing is much more horrific tonally. But just Halloween, again, it's hard to come across, especially if anyone listening hasn't seen it or hasn't seen it in a very long time, how utterly simple it is. And it's very easy to overthink something, especially as a slasher movie nowadays when everyone is trying to do something new or, please watch our movie, please, 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 here's this thing. But it's so simple. It is the easiest film to follow ever, and yet it's so well shot. It's well acted. I mean, for a 1978 $300,000 horror film, I mean, Donald Pleasance, boom, just really well done. It's really impressive, and I think it's so impressive that, you had mentioned the Halloween 2, which takes place on the same night and is even shot by Dean Cundey, but yet I don't feel that they're the same. I can utterly tell the difference. Just John Carpenter was not the director of Halloween 2. The script wasn't as there, but I think it shows how difficult it is to make a film as simple as Halloween work.
It's not a particularly violent film.
No.
I can't. In Halloween 2, there's that scene, the scolding in the sun. I can't even watch that scene.
If I'm remembering correctly, and I'm pretty sure I am because of how many times I've seen Halloween, it's not a lie to say I've seen this hundreds of times. I think there's one shot with blood in Halloween, and it's just the mechanic's body on the side of the road that Loomis doesn't see.
Yes. But they do kill a dog.
Yeah, they do.
That ain't cool.
Which, if I'm remembering correctly, was actually a cat jumping up in slow motion, and they played it in reverse.
Oh, right. Okay.
Something about that I just love.
Oh, I thought you meant they actually killed a cat, because they just don't like cats. This cat was bugging us for the whole 2-week shoot. We just killed that fucking cat.
Kill it. We'll get it on camera.
The other question I wanted to ask is the one thing I'd completely forgotten about. We see the Fi's face. We see it twice, really. We see it at the start when he escapes from the hospital, where he's just a not particularly intimidating guy in a skirt. And then at the very end of the movie, he takes it off, and I've always been intrigued by that because he never seemed to have he did seem to have a slightly, I don't know if it was just me, but he did appear to have a slightly deformed face, almost a T's Nest mongoloid face. Like one eye was like kind of.
He had one eye that was off because Laurie had stabbed him with the hanger.
Oh, of course, that's what it was. Of course, Phil, you idiot.
They cast a really good-looking guy just to make him just seem utterly normal. Although it's funny, if you watch Halloween 2, when they do the little recap of the last few minutes, which every 80s horror sequel did, where the first 5 minutes were the last 5 minutes of the last movie, they actually cut out the shot of his face. So he pulls off the mask, and then it cuts away before you actually see his face, which I find interesting. What's especially funny, I've always loved the beginning of Halloween 2, is it doesn't match because they reshot so much of it. So, like, in the first Halloween, Michael gets shot out the window and he falls in the backyard on, like, this dirty, muddy patch of area. In the first film, and then in the recap, he gets shot out the front of the house and lands on this utterly green, grassy lawn. And it does not in any way match at all.
Oh, gosh.
It's really hilarious. And then, Donald Pleasance's performance changes because in the first film, when he looks out, he has a sense of he knew it would happen or he was resigned to the idea that Michael can't die. And then in the second film, when they do the recap of it, his eyes go wide and he's like, "This guy, he's not human," just freaking out about it. It's such a difference.
I think the only thing that I am particularly fond of in Halloween 2 is that it does feel, you tell me if I'm wrong, but it does feel strange that if the sheriff has a daughter and the daughter is killed by Mike Myers, for that not to be addressed and for the sheriff to basically kind of disappear from the movie in Halloween 1. I guess it's important that does get actually addressed in the sequel.
It does, but it's very quick, and it's kind of sad because Charles Cyphers, who plays Sheriff Brackett, is only in the sequel for a little bit, and basically they get a call of a dead body, and basically they get a call of the carnage that's happened from the first movie, and they go and he sees his daughter's body, and then he yells at Loomis and he leaves. And that's
it, yeah.
So, I mean, they do acknowledge it, but then we get another guy who isn't quite as effective, basically replacing him, and yeah.
Well, I guess I'm running a risk here, folks, because obviously the goal of the segment is positivity, but I will ask Matt, as far as you're concerned, with speaking about the original series of films, what is the cut-off point? Where does the series properly end for you?
This is a very hard question to answer, and I'm going to tell you why. As a horror fan, I always felt as a horror fan, you tend to enjoy bad movies because otherwise you'd kill yourself because so many horror films are awful. The thing is, I have to separate even the sequels I like, and there are a fair number of Halloween sequels that I enjoy. I have to separate the first one because the first one is very simple. It's almost just a tale of unluckiness. It's Laurie Strode is this poor girl who happened to drop a key off at the Myers house, reminded Michael Myers of his sister, and so we followed her the rest of the movie. Spoiler alert, guys, for something that's 34 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
In Halloween 2, we find out that Laurie Strode is actually Michael Myers' sister. By some utter coincidence, her foster father, who was a horrible person, had her actually go to the Myers house after Michael escaped the night before and drop off a key. So the whole mythology changes in Halloween 2. Now it's not a tale of one unlucky girl and a really just sort of sadistic guy who's sort of trick-or-treating in his own way. Now it's Michael has to kill his family. Or excuse me, in Halloween 2 it's his sister. And then in Halloween 4 it's, oh, Laurie Strode has died, but she has a daughter, and now it's he has to kill his niece. And it gets progressively sillier to the point that by the sixth film, we're dealing with cults and star alignments that set him off and rituals, and it gets utterly ridiculous. I still like H2O, which is the Scream ripoff. Mm-hmm. I like Scream. H2O is the simplest film next to the first one. It gets in, it gets out. It's not nearly as well shot, but it's a fun movie. Jamie Lee Curtis is quite good in it. And then I would rather not talk about Halloween Resurrection because Busta Rhymes Kung Fu kicks Michael Myers. So that movie I don't want to think about happening.
Yeah.
This happiness segment has now gotten sad now that I found
Yeah, I'm really so... I was thinking just about the fact that, they cut his head off and then they had to explain why that wasn't...
He switched his or he broke a security guard's windpipe or something.
I don't know.
I always love watching H2O with that in my mind, just thinking, wow, this poor paramedic who's been, broken windpipe, been replaced, and this woman wants to kill him, he's really calm. Good for that guy. He's accepting his death.
Yeah. Oh boy. Me, folks, I'm just unfortunately I've only seen the first three, and it is a case of pure snobbery on my regard because I have seen all the Nightmares, I have seen all the Fridays.
Oh, you have no excuse if you've seen all the Fridays and only the
You
first
are completely right. You are completely correct. It just for some reason, up until this point, I guess you're turning me around, and that big box set from Shout Factory does look pretty nice.
It's incredible.
Maybe I'll buy that. But up until this point, certainly, I just felt Michael Myers exploded and burned to death very clearly at the end of Halloween 2. Halloween 3 makes it clear that that's why that movie exists.
Phil, see, this is where you make the slight mistake, and this is where separating the helps. Michael Myers didn't burn to death in Halloween 2. He got shot out of a window and disappeared in Halloween 1, and that's the real ending, and the rest is just fun.
That is a good enough excuse that I guess I'll see the others. Okay, you've got to explain the deal with 5 for me, because I've only heard... Because I watched the documentary and they just said, yeah, we made a mistake. We kind of rushed it out. But they never really explained why it was so terrible. So what's the deal with 5?
We have to go into Halloween 4 to talk about this a little bit. And again, spoiler alert, guys, it's 27 years old. So Halloween 4 actually has a rather ballsy ending, where he's been chasing his 8-year-old niece, Jamie, the whole time. At the end of the film, they kill Michael in the cheapest we ran out of money way possible, but they kill Michael. And then Jamie comes home, and then we start getting that first-person shot from the original Halloween of a clown mask coming down over someone's face and picking up scissors. And then there's a scream from upstairs, and we find that Jamie is wearing a clown costume with the mask and has stabbed her foster mother to death. Mm. And Loomis looks, and he knows it's never going to be over, and that's the end of Halloween 4. Mm. Which is a really great ending. Mm. Halloween 5, we find out, oh no, Jamie is psychically linked with Michael, and she didn't really stab her foster mother. It was him doing it somehow. And then it is the longest movie, and it feels like the longest movie. We replace the likable teenage heroine of 4, we kill her off quickly, and replace her with the most annoying character in the series. And let me say, this series has Busta Rhymes playing up for the camera, and he is not the most annoying character. This chick is. So we follow her the whole movie. We have a barn stalking sequence that lasts at least 20 minutes long and is done in the most incompetent way possible. We have clown tops, where every time they're on screen, we hear little clown horns and bonks in the background. What else do we have? The film is awful. We have a Myers house. Phil, having watched the original Halloween yesterday, you know the Myers house, that little kind of very quaint suburban little house? Mm. In Halloween 5, it is now a Gothic mansion.
Right.
So the cops set up an ambush for Michael in this gothic mansion. Michael shows up and kills them. Loomis catches Michael in a net and then hits him with laser darts.
It's fucking a Star Trek episode.
Laser darts and then beats him with a board. Michael finally collapses. And then we cut to the police station where, I swear to God, and this is no exaggeration, we see Michael sitting in a cell with his mask on, handcuffed, fiddling with the chain. Just sitting there like he's had a bad night and everyone's been mean to him, just sadly fiddling with the chain. And then we cut to this mysterious man in black who we've seen the whole movie with cowboy boots and has this little tattoo on his wrist, and he attacks the station with a machine gun in the cheapest way possible. So we see just like one shot and people screaming. And then Jamie goes back in and Michael is gone. The end. Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers.
Swinging this back to positivity very, very quickly, in a way that I don't know. I asked for that, folks. I don't know how to do it. I guess the only question is there a future for this title, this brand, this series? Because it's been a long time laying dormant.
You know what? Yes, I would say so much as the simplicity of it works. If you're just trying to make something scary, I absolutely think you can make Michael Myers scary again. There is a real risk of overthinking it, of taking kind of the Halloween 6 approach. Halloween 6 is a film that tried to explain Michael Myers, brought in cults, all this stuff. They overthought what they were doing so much that they completely lost what it was. And I feel like there's a real risk of doing that now. Nobody at the Weinsteins is really certain about what Halloween should be. So they're throwing a lot of different things out. This idea has been discarded, so I'll mention it. Like, one of the ideas was basically to do Con Air in an asylum with Michael Myers in the Nicolas Cage role.
Right?
Yeah, I swear to God, faithful listeners, that is not a lie. That was an actual real take on the next Halloween movie that they considered. Just go back to basics. Again, you don't need all of this family member stuff. You don't need all of this cult stuff. You don't need all of this extraneous stuff. Just go back. Michael Myers is creepy as hell. He latches onto one unfortunate girl, and he torments her. For some reason, Michael Myers latches onto her, then make her night a living hell. And that's it. You don't need to do anything more than that. And the more you do than that, the more you lose what made Halloween special.
Or dare I say, Matt, for no reason Michael latches onto it, because Laurie could be you, could be me. There shouldn't be a connection. I guess that's where too fucked.
Absolutely. Just make it as random as possible. She walks in front of him and he follows her. I'm totally going to pimp my friend out here. I have a friend named Steph Hutchinson who wrote a number of Halloween comic books. Brilliant guy. He wrote a comic book called Halloween Night Dance. And what it was this 15-year-old girl who just unfortunately happened to look a little bit like Michael's sister from the first movie. Mm-hmm. And that was it. And he made her life a living hell because of it. It's simple, it's scary for the randomness, and I think it's exactly what the next Halloween movie needs. Simplicity.
I'm all for that. Well, thank you, Matt. That was, I think that accomplished what we needed too. And I, on behalf of Matt, I'd like to thank him for reintroducing me to a film that deserves to be recognised as a classic.
If nothing else, Phil, I'm glad you got to watch Halloween on Blu-ray.
I am too. And by the way, folks, I mean, I really think to show our appreciation, even if you don't want to watch the other films, buy that box set from Shout Factory and just think of it as one film with the most elaborate packaging and special features ever. Maybe that's a good way to look at it.
It is an amazing box set, I swear. Whatever you think of the sequels, people were trying to do good work with them. And it's and I swear to God when I say this, I do not work for Shout Factory, people. I am not getting paid a little bit to say that. It is a really amazing box set, just if you're into film. So many behind-the-scenes things. You can see where things went wrong. It's a very nice perspective into the process.
Buy now, folks. I'll put the buy now click button just below the video description. So, Matt, where can the good folks find you?
Yes, if you want passive-aggressive tweets with the occasional spoiler because I read something really bad, I'm at Assorted Matt on Twitter.
Thank you very much. Jamie, where can we find you?
At Film Nerd Jamie.
And
Don't follow Jamie.
Well, no, you should. Jamie has earned his followers. He's got a sizable following, and he has
Did he pay for them?
No, he didn't. He has earned. I know
You
that.
answered a little quickly there.
I've been
Well, that's
blocked
'cause I know you can do that.
I've been blocked by certain assholes, so I know I'm doing a good job.
Exactly. Exactly. And you can follow me.
Yeah, Matt knows what I'm talking about.
Let's just put it this way. I only have like 150 followers, so please mercy follow me. Let's say that.
That's not good enough. No, before this year is out, we're going to get Matt some more followers.
Damn right.
Send them tonight,
You
folks.
guys, all of my Terminator scoops will go straight to my Twitter page.
Just remember, Big Black Rock. He
Yes.
warned you about this. Honestly. Anyway, folks, you can see me if you want to. My Twitter handle is Movie Moan. Very lucky to get that. Of course, there's 2 ways that you can find the podcast. Well, 3 ways, actually, I should say. On our website, thinkmcflythink.com, we have a special section on the top headings called Movie Moan. Click there, and that will give you access to the full video version of the show via YouTube, and also an audio version that you can download via Soundcloud. You could get it directly from Soundcloud if you wish, and I'd encourage you to do so. They've been very good to us. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, you can also go to our Movie Moan YouTube channel directly, where you'll find first the full 2-hour show if you have the time for it and the patience for Jamie, or you can just watch it in individual segments and just break it up throughout the week. And like I say, folks, it's going to be every 2 weeks that we give you a show, and that's simply to give me the time to make it good for you, because I don't want to sacrifice quality. So if I was just churning it out week after week after week, the quality would suck. I can tell you that right now, and I'm not going to compromise on that. Hopefully, please do give us your feedback, folks. I want to know if the format works for you. I want to know how you're listening to the show, how you're watching it. Are you listening to the whole thing? Is it tight? Is it pacey? Or do you want it to go longer? Do you want it to go shorter? Please don't tell me you want it to go longer, please. I can't take it. Exactly. Well, Jamie might be vindicated. You never know. But please do give me your feedback. This is the first episode of a reboot. This is a pilot. Sometimes pilots don't work. Sometimes pilots work right from the off. We'd love to know what kind of pilot we are. So please do let us know. In the meantime, you take care of yourselves. We will see you very, very shortly for the next Movie Moan 2015. Take care of yourselves.